In this video, we are going to use Webflow to create a custom fundraising thermometer, and we're going to hook it up to a CMS collection so that it can update dynamically. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Kyle, the creator of No Code Collab, a site with tips, tricks, and tutorials for your next no-code project. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out our website where we have snippets and things to help you with these tutorials. So I've got a client who wanted one of those thermometers on their website that shows a goal and then the progress towards achieving that goal. And I looked into it, and there's a lot of solutions out there, but they actually are thermometers, literally thermometers. And we wanted something that was a little more on brand. And so we decided that let's build something in Webflow that is branded, that is their logo. And then also let's tie that to a CMS collection item so that they can go in, they can update the CMS collection item themselves, and then we don't have to worry about creating new images and loading new images of this custom thermometer. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through it conceptually and kind of show you what we're trying to build. And then we've got some code that you can copy from our website, but we've got some code that we're going to walk you through and show you exactly what's going on. Okay, so here's a little preview of what we're going to be building inside of Webflow. This is our branded thermometer. As more enrollments come in, the level of the thermometer goes up and things color in and the gray shrinks. So that's what we're going to be building, just to give you a little preview of where we're going with this. You can, of course, use whatever image you want, but this is their logo, and we've added some markers on the left-hand side to help people understand how close they are to achieving their goal. So let's jump over to Figma quick so that I can show you conceptually what we're doing. So we're going to use the embed code element inside of your Webflow project. Now, when you drag that into your project, it just naturally creates a div. And we are going to call that div block, or that embed code element. We're going to give that a class of thermometer. You can name it whatever you want, but for the sake of this, we're calling it thermometer. Now, that thermometer div, we are going to put a background image on. So inside of the CSS properties on the class thermometer, we're going to have a background image, and that background image is going to be our branded thermometer image. So as you can see here, we've now added our background image in there. So we've got this div that now has a background image. And then inside of the embed element, we are also going to have a little JavaScript that is going to create a div on the fly inside of thermometer. So inside of this thermometer element, we are going to create a new div. Now, the nature of CSS or of HTML is that these elements float to the top left of their parent element. So the thermometer div, or the div inside of thermometer, is going to start out and it's going to look like this. It's going to be full width, but it's going to be right at the top. And then what we can do is we can tell it to grow. We can give it a larger height relative to the parent, and so it can grow, and it can grow from the top. Now, a gray bar on top of our image is not our thermometer. So what we have to also do inside of our embed element is we have to use a custom CSS property called a blend mode. And it's not native to Webflow. They don't support it in their UI, but we can write custom CSS. And so the way that works is we are going to have a little bit of CSS, and effectively what it does is we are going to use the saturation mix blend mode. And you can see now what's happening is it is creating everything underneath it is now grayed. It's in a grayscale. So this div here effectively acts as the empty part of the thermometer. So if we were only at 25% enrollment, then what we do is we make our new div, we make that 75%. So that's what we're going to be doing. It's just a little CSS trickery. We're not actually creating new images or anything. We're just using a blend mode to create the illusion that there is an empty spot on the thermometer above what has been donated or how many enrollments. So let's jump over to Webflow now and show you how to get this done. So I am inside of Webflow. I am on the page where we want our thermometer to be. What I have here is I have our embed element that has a class of thermometer. The other important thing to note is that it does have an ID of thermometer because we need to have an ID so that we can grab it with our script that's inside of the embed code. So remember that is that you've got to give it an ID. Remember that ID, but also we've called it the same thing. It's the same class, but if we scroll down here, we can see that our embed element has a background image that is the image from Figma that we just looked at. So you can see we've got a background image. And then the other important thing is we've given this a fixed width and height. And the reason for that is because if it's dynamic, sometimes your images can kind of get cut off. You'll have a container and then the page will grow and then the dimensions and the proportions are off. And then your thermometer level can get screwed up. So if you give it a fixed width and a fixed height, then we know it's always going to be good. And those width and height also match the background image that we have. So it makes things easier. So if we jump into our embed element, we've got a couple parts here. And what I'll do is zoom in so that we can all see this a little better. The first part is our CSS. So as I mentioned, there is a mix blend mode CSS property that we're going to use called saturation. And all we're doing is applying that to this class called meter level. So the div that we're creating on the fly with JavaScript, we're going to give that a class of meter level. And then meter level is going to have a mix blend mode applied to it of saturation. That gives it that black and white. Jumping down now, we've got our script. Pretty simple little JavaScript code here. We have to use vanilla JavaScript because it's in line on the page. If you want to use jQuery, you just need to add it to the footer below at the bottom of the page in your page settings. So you could do that. This is because it's such a simple JavaScript function, it's easy to just add it right in the page here. So I'm going to skip over this first part. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this little object called meter. And what meter is we're creating an object that is a div. So it's just a blank div. We're then going to give it a class name of meter level, which matches our class name up above. And then we're going to give it a height. We're going to give it a style. We're going to give it a height. And that height is going to come from our variable up here. And then we're adding the percentage sign so that it is treated like CSS and we know that it's a height percentage. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get our embed object or embedded div by the ID. And that's why we needed that ID field. We needed to give our thermometer an ID. Our ID is thermometer. We're going to grab that div. And what we're going to do is inside, we're going to append, we're going to add the child element of meter. And so we're adding this that we just created above. So basically what we're doing is we're grabbing our thermometer, we're adding the meter level. And the way that we are determining the height of it is you'll see we've got height equals 100 minus the enrollment percentage. So if you remember from the Figma, if we have 25% enrollment, we actually have 75% gray. So we have 100 minus 25 equals our 75%. If we have 75% fundraising achieved, then really we only have 25% left. So we've got 100 minus 75 is 25. So the way that we're determining the height of that div is by doing 100 minus the enrollment. And so that is what's going on here. Now, you'll notice that we've got our little purple field. That's because this is from a collection item, which we'll go over in a second. But we're pulling in our collection field that has our enrollment percentage, and we're using that to drive the height. All of this is over in on the page on No Code Collab. So you can just go and you can grab this and you can paste this right in, but it's pretty simple. That's what we've got going on. That's what we've got going on the embed element. So jumping over to our collection, here's what we've got going on. we have a, let me see that. We have a collection called Enrollment Progress. I'll zoom in here too. Enrollment Progress. And we've got current enrollment progress, or current enrollment percentage, excuse me. And all we have is one field, and that one field is enrollment percentage. And so what happens is, as my client has a new enrollment percentage, they come into the collection, they find the one record that's in there, and they update from 50 to 60. 60 to 75. They just update that one number, and because the JavaScript embed element is using that field dynamically in the code, then it will dynamically change the height of that div. This is a method using just one record in our CMS collection. So there is a little bit of manual work where you got to come in, you got to update it. If you wanted to, what you could do is you could create, if you had an Airtable base that had all of your donations, or if you had a Google Sheet, or you had something that was tracking donations, you could have a calculated field in there that was percentage, enrollment percentage. And it's just calculated based on, what the total percentage is. And so it would calculate it. Then every time a new donation or a new enrollment came in, and that field is calculated, then we could send it over to Webflow using Zapier, or maybe like the Noble Sync, maybe Power Importer. There's a few ways you can do it. And then what you would do is in your embed element, you would just make sure that you're filtering only by the most recent enrollment or the most recent record in that collection. So we would only be looking at the most recent record, and every time that came in, it would have the most up-to-date progress percentage. So that is an alternative way where you could do it more automated so that you don't have to update this number. Additionally, the way that we've done this is we've just, on our page, we've dragged in our collection. We have on our individual record, we've just dragged in our thermometer embed element. We've got that code. We pasted the code. The last thing that I did was added another embed code where it was just a heading, a very simple heading with some text, and then I pulled in the progress field. And that is just so that we've got an actual number representation, not just the visual thermometer. So you don't have to do that. If you want to, you could, but really that's all we've got, is we've got that little bit of code, and we've got a little bit of code. We've got the collection that's embedded, and there's a few ways to do it. So you've got a lot of options. Hopefully that tutorial was helpful. Head over to No Code Collab to get the snippet so that you can just paste that right into your Webflow project and you don't have to type it all out by hand. Again, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you at the next tutorial.